NFR.
NFR Extra is a podcast dedicated to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo and features icons and personalities that embody the Western lifestyle.
We got to talking behind the chutes at Cheyenne. He's like, you and I just, we're young. We're not tied down at all. We just need to start entering and go hard and see if we can make the NFR this year. And that was our deal. We're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm all in. Back then, it was just all about the rodeo. But I kind of made a deal with myself. If I stuck it out and got that degree, then I would allow myself a couple years to go and chase that dream and see where it took me.
This is Brylan Bentley, and you're listening to NFR Extra.
But yeah, congratulations, by the way, on being one of the Vegas icons. I mean, that's got to be really exciting for you.
Yeah, it is. It was impressive when they started doing that a few years ago, and I just thought it was a great concept.
Well, for sure. I mean, because there's so many people that when you think of the Thomas and Mack and you think of Vegas, there's names that pop up. I mean, I'm interested to hear what your first experience was the first time you made the finals and kind of what your feeling was going into that building.
Well, the most nervous I was my first year was the grand entry that first year. It truly is. You ride in that building and just how electric it is. You're a horseback kind of I was with the Montana contingent, but just the electricity inside that building. We had been in there a couple days before doing the rehearsal. So you had been in the building, but it wasn't full of people. But it does get electric.
Did you ride your own horse at that point, or were you on one of the provided horses?
They provide horses for the rough stock contestants. The time event contestants have horses there.
Yep.
Ride their own horses. But and actually, I qualified for the NFR 16 times. And one year I was hurt, so I wasn't able to be there. But I think it was my second year, I got a really nice black horse. And they let me ride that same horse every single year for the rest of my career at there. So it was a really nice horse.
That is lucky, because there's usually always one or two that are like, man. And I got that one for 10 days. Here we go.
When you're coming in down the alley and the horse I was originally assigned got to cutting hard right every time, when they come out, they go to the right. And about the second or third performance or go around, he ducked hard right and he smashed my knee on that post coming out of there. Oh. And they're like, yeah, we'll get you on a different horse. And that's when I got on that black horse. And he actually belonged to Barnes's, John Barnes.
Okay.
And then I got to ride that same horse the rest of my career. And I never knew that was John's horse until I was visiting with him, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. And he's like, that horse, that black horse you used to ride? He's like, that was my horse, which was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So going back to the early days of making the finals, what was it like, in the early 90s for you being a young man, obviously wanting to be at the NFR? What was the biggest difference back then to what you see today?
Back then, it was just all about the rodeo. Now there's just so much more involved with the national finals. I remember the first year they put the tents out in the parking lot, and there was nobody. I had an endorsement deal with Coors, and they had one of the tents out there. I think there was only like 2 tents, Coors, maybe Jack Daniels, and they were doing everything they could to get people to go out there, to introduce that to them. And I remember that first year they had a pool table out there in the tent. And then the second year they brought in a bucket machine so people could get on this little mechanical bull deal. And they had a bar set up. And it was a really cool deal, great concept. And Donna Keffler has run the Coors program forever. kind of her baby, and you look at it now, what goes on outside. So the rodeo is still fantastic. The rodeo was fantastic when I started competing there in 1990, but just the whole event and everything associated with it has just gotten so much more spectacular, I guess.
How much did you win at your first NFR?
I think I won about 12,000. I didn't do very good. I placed in the first round and the 10th round. And I was actually still in college, and I should have went back to school the middle 8 rounds. I was with one of my professors because I had to get a whole week off of school, He was kind of a hard ass guy. So I get back from my first NFR, and he's like, "Well, did you win anything?" I said, "Well, I won 12,000, but I had not a very good finals." And he's like, "Well, that's pretty darn good, Significant portion of my annual income." But then in years later, I had some fantastic finals.
So I always look back during that era, and obviously there was a lot of energy around the Ettbauer family, but I've never had the opportunity to ask either one of you these questions. Was there a rivalry, or was it just guys going out and doing their job? Because it always felt like as a viewer and as a kid growing up watching these rodeos, you always wanted to create in your mind an Ettbauer Mortensen rivalry. But was there really one, or were you guys buds?
We're actually pretty good friends, and the whole family was fantastic. Robert, Dan, and Billy being the youngest. I've known them guys since I first started rodeo and in the PRCA professionally. I've caught rides with them. They've caught rides with me. And they're good people. They're a good family. So it's really hard to, you go in, you do your best, you compete your hardest. But there was never really that rivalry. I tried to create the rivalry. And it wasn't really a rivalry, but the animal that I drew, I wanted to do my best to work with that horse and create the perfect ride, or what we could do to get closest to the perfect ride. So you can help a horse out a lot with their bucking performance. If you're in time with them and you're kind of doing stuff to help the horse, they will perform better. The horse, helps you. The better they do, the greater opportunity you have to get a high score. So I always tried to make it between me and the animal, because throughout the whole year, just the way the PRCA is set up, you travel with bronc riders, or I always traveled with bronc riders. You enter all the rodeos, you're traveling all season. So they become your best friends. You spend endless hours in a vehicle driving up and down the road to rodeos with saddle bronc riders. And it's a pretty tight-knit group. So you get into that locker room, and, it was kind of neat. I had my spot in the locker room. Every year I sat in the same location. So did Billy Ettbauer across the way. Like, he always sat in the same spot. But you get in there, and you've been traveling, you've been around these guys all year long. So it was pretty special, really. But you go out, and I'm my best friends, I'm competing head to head with them at the national finals and all throughout the year.
I'm just curious, who were some of those favorites over the years traveling down the road?
I traveled a lot with Rod Hay. I graduated from college in 92. So my rookie year was 1990. I made the finals in 1990, my rookie year. I missed it in 91. I was still going to school. And then I graduated in 92, and I had the opportunity to hook up with Rod, or travel with Rod. And I had met Rod actually in 80, or my first year at Powell. I went to 2 years to Powell, and then I transferred to Montana State, and I met Rod at Powell, and he went into the PRCA a year before I did. He made the NFR his rookie year. I kind of just followed along his career or path. I made the NFR my rookie year, and then after I graduated from college, I had the opportunity to travel with him. And then he was from Canada, so I traveled with a bunch of Canadians, but then also the Montana guys, Jess Martin. I've traveled with some great guys over the years. Justin Arnold was from California. I got to travel with him. Cody Martin was from Arkansas, Smackover, Arkansas, just an outstanding individual. Got to travel with him. And early in my career, I got to travel with some older guys. I traveled 1 year with Butch Small, 1 year with Kent Cooper, and just learned a bunch about them guys, the history of rodeo. So it's you spend a lot of hours in a vehicle with them, and you really get to respect them.
So as a young guy starting out, were there some goals that you had in mind? I mean, so obviously making your NFR as a rookie, but was there anything else that you wanted to check off early in your career?
There was not. I think I kind of came from an interesting path because I didn't have any family that had rodeoed before me. So when I started rodeoing, I started riding steers at about 11, competed all through high school. I actually started out as a bull rider. I was a 3-time high school state champion bull rider. Never started riding saddle bronc horses till my senior year of high school. Got recruited to college as a bull rider, and that's kind of where I learned how to ride broncs. But I was always just doing it for fun. Just like I played baseball for a couple of years, I did different things. And to me, rodeo was just, I loved it. It was fun. And I had honestly never considered actually trying to make a career or do it professionally. And there's one instance, we were actually coming back from a college rodeo. Rod Hay was we had like this big van that all the rough stock guys were in.
Mm-hmm.
Ike Sankey was the coach. Rod Hay was going to school there. Rod knew his path at the time. He had come from rodeo family. College was just one step in his rodeo evolution, basically. And he already rode great. But I sat back and got to listen to this conversation between Rod, the up-and-coming kid, and Ike, who had been to the NFR like 4 times, was now a stock contractor taking stock to the NFR.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to sit back like the fly on the wall, I always say, and listen to this amazing conversation. And Rod's just picking Ike's brain, like all the questions that I never even thought of. And he's asking them. And it was, I always look back at that night, and it was the middle of the night. We're coming back from Helena. We were headed down to Powwow. So it was pretty neat.
Let's take a quick pause, and we'll be right back. Las Vegas becomes the center of the Western universe every December with the return of the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo. And, of course, Cowboy Christmas presented by Pro Fantasy Rodeo. It's the perfect way to spend your day with family and friends. There's endless shopping, entertainment on the Ariat Rodeo Live Stage, the Yeti Junior NFR, contestant autograph sessions, and all-day fun. There's so much and more in Las Vegas. Cowboy Christmas, presented by Pro Fantasy Rodeo. It's all here.
So stylistically, was there someone early on that you tried to follow or get tips from when you were riding?
Well, no, you learn who you should go and take advice from. There's always a lot of people that want to give you advice. When my performances needed critiquing, I was usually the hardest on myself, but so you learn who to listen to, who not to. Stylistically, I used to carry a picture of Clint Johnson around in my briefcase, my bag, because to me, like, it was just an autograph picture that he had given out. And he actually signed a picture to Gary McDaniels, who is a good friend of mine, rode saddle bronc horses. Gary had it hanging on the wall of his house. And I said, can I get a photocopy of that? And I did. And I packed it in my bag because to me, that's what bronc riding's supposed to be. Lifted on his rein, amazing. His feet were set. He was just technically probably one of the best saddle bronc riders I'd ever seen. And his career ended right about the time mine started. So it was, that was the picture I packed around in my bag.
So speaking of world champions, you win your first world title. And so now you have a gold buckle. Does that just stoke the fire to want to chase records, or what does that do as far as changing your mentality after you win that first gold buckle?
It did stoke the fire, definitely. But I don't think I had never had the visions of setting records or breaking records. It was something that I truly just loved to do. And I stayed in college because I wanted the degree, and I rodeoed for the college. So, I mean, rodeo actually paid for my college. And that the only reason I was able to get all the way through and get a degree was because of rodeo. But I kind of made a deal with myself. If you stick this out, because a lot of guys, they end up leaving school to go chase the dream of rodeoing.
Right.
And I mean, I was drawn to that too. After making the NFR in 1990, my rookie year, I'm still in school, still had quite a bit of school to get through to get that degree. But I made myself a promise that if I stuck it out and got that degree, then I would allow myself a couple years to go and chase that dream and see where it took me. And I guess, I won the first world title in 93, and it all started in 92 when I got out of college. We just started I started rodeoing really hard. That's what I was putting all of my attention, all of my effort into. You're just chasing the dream of being able to do it and make enough money to not have to go home and get it.
Get a real job.
There was a couple times early in my career where it was touch and go. I mean, there's a couple times that I can look back onto where I was ready to quit entering all the rodeos and go home and get a job. There's one instance in 92 that really stuck out, and it was at Cheyenne. I ended up coming into that rodeo the week before. There's a bunch of big rodeos, but they're really spread out anywhere from Salinas, California to Morris, Manitoba, everywhere in between. And it's an expensive week, but you can win a lot. Well, I had never won a dime and had spent a lot of money. And at the end of it, I was coming back to get on my second one at Cheyenne. And I was to the point I was going to have to go home and get a job. So the guy I was traveling with at the time, I told him, you need to quit entering me. Like, I'm done. We were headed back to get on our second ones at Cheyenne. The first one, I wasn't a very good horse. I was 65 points or something. Well, I ended up going back for my second one, do good on him. Young horse, nobody knew him. Just turns out really good. I ended up winning that round. I think I ended up third in the average or something. My last couple horses kind of hit it. I won enough money to kind of put me back on the road. And that's where Rod and I got hooked up and started traveling. Because the guy that Rod was traveling with was Chris Anderson, who's actually Ben Anderson's dad. Ben been going to the finals.
Yep.
And that's how Rod met his wife. Rod's wife is Chris Anderson's niece.
Oh.
So Chris had just broken his leg really bad riding Broncs. So Rod was by himself at that point. And we got to talking behind the chutes at Cheyenne. He's like, you and I just, we're young. We're not tied down at all. We just need to start entering and go hard and see if we can make the NFR this year. And that was our deal. We're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm all in. And it just carried forward. We rodeoed it. That's as hard as I've ever rodeoed, was that, from then on in 92, and we just carried it right into 93. We spent most of the year first and second in the standings, all of 93. And that's the year I won my first world title. We just carried it into 94. So we were truly just out living the dream, having fun. So I guess my goals at that point, I was living the dream, truly.
Right.
It wasn't until later in my career where you have more stuff going on that I would, make a conscious effort every year after the national finals to sit back and say, am I willing to go out and put the effort in to do it again for another year?
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted to ride the backside of that road. I wanted to be able to go out as close to top as I could. And it's a huge commitment that it takes to make the national finals.
Absolutely.
You have got to be willing to go out and do it, because if you're not, there's a lot of guys lined up behind you that are willing to do it.
And would you say, so this is always a curious thing for me, which one of the gold buckles was the hardest then throughout that journey? It's always unique to hear. Was it that second one, the third one? There's always typically a story within, like, which gold buckle really had the biggest story for you?
They're all so different. I know the year I won the all-around was 1997. And I had a really good year riding saddle bronc horses. I won 9,000 in the bull riding, which qualified me for the all-around. And I went to the finals that year and really struggled. And I think it was the additional pressure. It's amazing going into the NFR. If you're winning first, you get all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a lot tougher, even though you might be $3,000 in the lead. Well, the go-arounds at the time were paying $12,000, between $12,000 and $15,000. So your lead is minimal.
Right.
But yet you get so much more pressure because you're the number one guy going in. So it's almost like pressure-wise, I'd almost rather go in second.
Right.
Because then I know the guy ahead of me everybody's expecting him to win it. He's got all the pressure on him, and I got none on me. So 97 is the year I went in the bronc ride and winning the all around. And I didn't have very good finals. And I believe, looking back at it now, or even the next year, I know the pressure was kind of getting to me. I was riding a little bit tight. You can't do that at the national finals. At that level where you're competing against the best guys in the world, you cannot ride tight. You have to let it roll and just be loose. So that year I ended up winning it, winning the bronc ride and win the all around. The very next year, 98, I went in again in the lead, had a pretty good lead. But when I got there, it was just like, it felt like no pressure that year.
Mm-hmm.
I came in and the finals started well for me, and I was relaxed. Ended up winning 5 go-arounds that year and had the world title locked up like after the 7th round. I could have fell off every horse. Could have won a round and still couldn't catch me. So that's just the difference of being relaxed or having that pressure that you're fighting. And it's all with yourself. I mean, it's all in your own head. So every single buckle was special. The first gold buckle I won was in 1993. The last one was in 2003. And there was, I won 6 gold buckles in bronc riding and was second several times to Billy. So there was a lot of years and each one was special. Even the years I didn't win it. 92, I went in the lead, or 2002, I went into the lead going into the finals and ended up losing it to my traveling partner, Glenn O'Neill. He had a phenomenal finals. I didn't have a bad finals. It was the year I set an arena record in the 9th round on Painted Smile.
Mm-hmm.
Still ended up winning second in the world to Glenn. The next year, I think Glenn went in the lead. I went in second, and I ended up beating Glenn. So that was 2003. So even some of the years like 02 that I won second was still a special year, and get Glenn to this day is a really good friend of mine. He's actually married to Rod's little sister. So that's Rod, the Hayes, he'd be an uncle to Dawson and Logan. But even, winning second to him and having that battle at the finals and being able to walk up and shake his hand at the end of the week and say, you outrode me this week, and he deserved it.
Well, you were talking about some of those rides, and in that era, obviously think about Glenn riding Airwolf and, your ride on Painted Smile and Big Valley. Are there any that stick out to you that you you smile every time you think about that?
Well, the Painted Smile ride is definitely one of them. Earlier in my career, I don't remember what year it was, but I actually set the NFR record on Airwolf
Oh, did you really? Okay.
at the NFR. And I mean, he bucked and was out of line. And I want to say 88 points, and that set the arena record at the time. And then I ended up, that record got beat, and then I ended up being 92 once Painted Smile. But that Airwolf ride was pretty special too. And two totally different horses, like Airwolf was like, I always said he was like riding a cat. So fast, and you never knew where he was going to be. He wasn't real strong, but it was like letting the air out of a balloon. Mm-hmm. But he bucked. Painted Smile is totally different. She just turned and went straight as an arrow, but as strong as you could imagine, really strong. Lifted a lot of guys up and threw them off. I'd been on her a couple times before, ridden her once, and a couple years before, maybe even a year or two before at the NFR, she threw me off really hard at the finals too, like right on top of my head. And so there was definitely we had history going into that.
It was great payback. So fast forward to today, and obviously there's some folks that you get to share this Las Vegas icon moment with. What's life like for Dan Mortensen in 2025?
Life's pretty good. My wife and I have 3 kids. We homeschool them actually. So they're out in the kitchen right now doing school. But they all came after my career was over. And quite a ways after my career was over. My daughter was born in 2013. So my last year I rodeoed was 2006. So they never got to see their dad ride. So we actually went down to the NFR last year, and they got to go as their first time to go to the National Finals Rodeo, and it was pretty special. And then to have this opportunity this year to let them be a part of what I was able to achieve in rodeo, that means the most to me right now. Is just being able to have my wife and kids with me going down to this.
Well, we can't wait to see you back in the Thomas and Mack, Dan, and this has been an absolute pleasure. We appreciate your time, and honestly, thanks for all the memories.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Want to experience more of the NFR? Then visit nfrexperience.com, and we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.